Okay, Romans chapter 3, 21 through 30. Here, Paul is continuing on his two themes he's had so far. First, the Jews and the Gentiles must be unified. They are in the same boat. They are all sinful. They have all failed. And they all need the grace of God. And second, he's trying to explain the law and grace. Now, let me add one more point here. Here, Paul is getting into full Pharisee theology nerd mode. In this part, he's being super geeky rabbi. And so the language and the concept in these verses are really dense. And they're kind of hard to follow. So let me see if I can simplify it. So this is what Paul is saying. God's righteousness is expressed in the law. And the law is a reflection of the righteousness of God. The law shows you how perfect, how ordered, how moral is God and the designs of God. But the righteousness of God is also expressed and demonstrated or on display through God's grace. Now, law and grace are competing concepts, okay? And yet both law and grace reflect the righteousness of God. Verse 22 says that, quote, the righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe, end quote. And now I know that as people who grew up in the church, you know this already. You've heard this a million times. But we have to try to recapture the weirdness, the novelty of the sentence. This is a really revolutionary idea, and at the time it struck the Jews as being absolutely bizarre and mind-blowing. Righteousness, or in the Greek, the righteousness, the term that's translated righteousness is dikaiosine, or dikaiosine, or righteousness is given to you. Now, what do we mean by righteousness? One of these words we use all the time as Christians that sort of washes over us. In this context, righteousness is a state of being correct before God. You are the way before God that you ought to be. You are the way you're supposed to be. You are perfect. And you would think naturally that if you are righteous, you achieved it. Like, I've nailed it. All right? I think about getting 100% on a test. You don't just walk in one day with no studying and make up some random crap and accidentally get 100%. And it's not like you actually got a 72% and your professor's like, yeah, I'm going to give you 100. And that's not really an A, is it? That's just something else. No. You studied non-stop for weeks, 24/7. You barely ate, you barely slept, you didn't hang with your friends, and you studied and studied and studied. And you walk in on that test day, you know it, you own it, no doubts. You took that test and you knew every single answer, and you achieved it. This attitude, that would be especially true for the Jews. They've had a long history of striving towards God, striving and working, achieving God, working towards righteousness, working on having righteousness. Like getting an A on a test. You nailed it. But Paul is now saying you are righteous, but it's not achieved by you. You didn't achieve it. It's given to you through Christ. And this is grace. That's a major paradigm shift. And what Paul is getting at is this. The Jews and Gentiles are in the same boat. Both groups are in desperate need of the grace of God. Now I can imagine what the Jews are thinking is that they, of course, need the grace and mercy of God, the grace and mercy of God, the kindness of God, the forgiveness of God. That's all throughout the Old Testament. Nothing new there. But then they must be thinking, even though they don't say it out loud, right, that these new Gentiles, like, they're again, we need the grace of God, but the Gentiles, they really need the grace and mercy of God. They're the charity case, the dirty, smelly, homeless people who like walking off the streets and need your help because you're middle class or rich and you have stuff to give them. And they must be thinking we Jews need to be really kind and merciful to these poor, pathetic souls who are dirty and need help. They don't know anything. But Paul is saying something that's really hard to accept. And it's mind-blowing. There are not two classes of people, the classy and the homeless off the street. Paul is saying you are all equally pathetic and desperate in need of help. Paul is saying you Jews, the way you look at those dirty, homeless, grubby Gentiles, that's actually you. You're just as grubby and in need of help. You're just as pathetic. At the foot of the cross, you're all equal. Verse 21 says there is no boasting. You can't boast about being a Jew. You can't boast about being a righteous person, even if you're Jew or Greek. You are dikaiosine. You are righteous, but neither one of you get any credit for it. I want to think about the verse 24. Quote, all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. That word redemption. Now, there are actually quite a few words that are commonly translated into the English as redemption. In this verse, the Greek word is apolutrosis. Apolutrosis. Broadly, this simply means to purchase or buy. Like tomorrow, I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to redeem or apolutrosis, a new shirt with my credit card. Right? It just means buy or purchase, to get back, to redeem something, get it back to yourself. But this word, apolutrosis, has more specific meaning. It means I'm going to pay a price to redeem, purchase, or get back something that previously belonged to me. I mean, more specifically, this word would be used in a hostage situation. You pay a price, you pay a ransom price to redeem a hostage. And this hostage could be like a family member, someone who's very close to you, someone you love. Like you're going to go pay a gigantic case of gold to get your child back, your sister back, your mother back, from people who had kidnapped this person that's beloved to you, that properly belongs to you. But you got to pay a huge amount of money to get this back. That's what it means to redeem. That is the more specific meaning of the word redeem or redemption in this context. We belong to God properly. That's where we started out as. But we've been kidnapped by Satan, held hostage by sin. And Paul is saying God is buying you back from Satan. God is redeeming you back from Satan. God is purchasing you from Satan. Satan who is holding you hostage. And the price of our redemption is the death of Christ. And that is how much you are worth to God. We often say salvation is a free gift of God. Again, you've heard that since the earliest memories of youth group. Salvation is free. You don't earn salvation. Salvation is a free gift from God. I mean, verse 24 says we are justified freely. Again, it is free. You don't pay for it. You don't earn it. That's very important for us to know. You don't earn it, and it's for everyone, not just for the Jews, not just for the elite, not just for the morally upright, not just for the classy, not for those who are clean and look respectable. It's free for everyone. But we need to be really clear about this. And this is a big misconception I think we have. We all have this. It is indeed free for us. You don't earn salvation. For us, it is free. But salvation is not actually free at all. In fact, the price of redemption, the price of our salvation is crazy expensive. It's beyond calculation. Your value or your price tag on you is the death of God. Maybe we should let that sink in for a bit. That is our value. It is a death of God.